So we got some spooky things for you this month. We're doing some episodes in mythology and folklore today, and I am joined always by Benny and Andy.
Hello.
We tried to get Noah again, but he's always busy, that one. So we're doing folklore mythology from different cultures. We have all picked out 2 stories. I believe we figured out I'm going first, and I have 2. One of them's a legend, so I can't really go too into detail of it because it's a legend and it's just like a short explanation. The other one is one that I'm going to read. It's another legend, so it's a lot of description. But my first one is from Iceland. It's a Nordic tale. A lot of the Nordic region's horror stories come from ships, apparently. So a lot of them have to do with boats sinking and shit and stuff. Sorry, no cussing. We're a good channel. Sorry. So I'm gonna pull it up now. Forgive my Icelandic. I don't understand how to speak it really. The Learbaki ghost. This takes place in Iceland. This tale begins with a ship that went down near the coast of Iceland. While the legend of the ghost is a folk tale, many of the events leading up to it were real. An actual Danish ship named the Gothenburg sunk back in the 1700s, but luckily nearly all of the 170 occupants were safely rescued. Unfortunately, this did not mean that the survivors' troubles were over. Those who had survived had no way of quickly getting back home. Their ship was sunk and their supplies were gone, so they were dependent on the kindness of local farmers to keep them alive until other arrangements could be made. Sadly, there simply was not enough food to go around for everyone, and some people ended up starving to death. Most notably, the ship's cook. Nearly a century later, 2 men accidentally brought the cook back from his eternal slumber. The specter simply came out of the ground, and the 2 terrified men quickly left the graveyard to escape from the ghost. Unfortunately, the ghost followed one of them from the graveyard and began haunting him until the day of his death. Even when the man moved to Learbaki, it would not leave him nor his family alone, and thus it became known as the Learbaki ghost. He was not known to be particularly dangerous, but stalked the family whenever they went to frighten them and others around them. Some of the legends claim that he tore the roof off of a barn once, and he was well known for spooking horses. Some people say that his ghost still walks the earth in Iceland looking for people to frighten, taking out his tragic death on the innocent Icelanders. So that is the explanation. That's the lore behind the Learbaki ghost.
So they raised his spirit by what? Were they grave robbing or digging? They were just messing around in a cemetery?
Not that they just were standing there. I guess they just were standing there and all of a sudden, boop, he rises up.
Like, time to haunt something.
They do like
I'm feeling spoopy.
They didn't like witchcraft or anything?
Not that I can tell. It doesn't say.
And one of them got off scot-free just because he just happened to not be followed. He just happened to be the faster one, I guess.
I suppose so.
We Icelandic people are naturally magical.
I see the way we're doing things now. Shout out to a podcast I listen to called Lore. It's Aaron Mankey also.
Oh yeah, Lore's fantastic.
So I've been listening to that one, and I feel like we're actually getting into actual stuff now. It feels really good. It feels really good. So that was my first one. Was the Learbaki ghost.
Interesting.
Well, I have met 2 Icelandic people before.
Yeah.
And they were pretty magical. Say so myself anyway.
Oh. Who was going next? I think it's Benny, right?
Yeah.
So my story comes from the Galapagos Island in South America, which is a island that Charles Darwin was studying.
Mm-hmm.
Off the coast of Chile, I believe. And so this is the of La Gringa Sin Cabeza, which means the headless gringa, and gringa or gringo, a slang term for American, for white people.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
All right, bringing race into this podcast.
Of
Just
course.
get. We're literally talking
Politics
about.
and race.
Oh my gosh.
So, the legend goes like this: there was a military base, an American military base in Galapagos Island. There was a soldier and his girlfriend. Yes, right. Um, what ended up happening was that the lady, they don't have any names, just the soldier and his girlfriend. The girlfriend was actually cheating,
Oh.
Ooh.
and then he found out, and in a fit of rage, the cliffside.
Mm.
And so I don't exactly know, but her head got caught in something, maybe a branch or a rock, and she got decapitated on the way down.
Oh.
Many years later, the U.S. left that island, like the U.S. Armed Forces left that island, and I believe the Ecuadorian into the island. And to this day, the base is haunted by the headless gringa.
Oh.
He haunts the soldiers that are lonely. It only haunts the soldiers that are lonesome, and
Oh.
um, yeah, and so they say that he she can be found um on the tarmac on
Oh.
where the airplanes were landing.
Wow.
That legend has it that a lot of the times and will feel like a weight on them as they're sleeping, and that they can't, almost like a person is laying on top of them.
Mm.
Ooh.
Ooh.
And when she is being nice, quote unquote, fume, but when she is being mean, or when she's mad, flesh.
Ooh.
Can you imagine just sleeping one day and you get the smell of rotten flesh and you have this weight?
I mean, I play
Perfect.
Minecraft every day, so I I know a thing or two about rotten flesh and heavy weight on my shoulders.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to disrespect
Was-
the Chilean culture on the Galapagos
You
Islands.
just disrespected the headless. I
The
hope
headless
you're probably
gringo.
gonna smell rotten flesh tonight.
Hey, it said lonely, right? Can't be lonely.
Well, honestly, I would
Yeah?
say that you pursuing a relationship is more indicative of you being lonely.
Stop. Quit
Lonely
that.
people, lonely people turn into houses.
Turn into what?
Lonely single people turn into lonely married people.
All right, that's a bit heavy, okay? Stop. Next week's episode, the lore of marriage.
Oh boy.
Oh my gosh.
Moral
No.
of the story is, don't cheat on your significant other unless you want to get thrown off a cliff.
Unless you want to get sat upon
Yeah.
and doused in rotten flesh.
Yeah. Oof, 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 oof.
Go ahead,
So
Andy.
Andy's next.
Yeah.
Go
My
Andy.
turn.
Which one are you
All
doing?
right. So
Oh yeah.
on this, we visited Iceland. We visited the Galapagos Islands. Now we're going to take a trip around the world to the Philippines. And in this particular location, we'll hear the legend of a mysterious creature known as the Aswang. I'm not exactly sure of the pronunciation on that, but it's spelled Aswang, so that's how I'm just going to
Like ass
refer to
wang.
it. Yeah, something like that, I guess.
Sure.
So technically dick butt. But
More mature. Even more mature.
yeah. Okay, so the legend, and this is like one of those legends that you'll hear similar to things like zombies and witches and werewolves, where there's tons of different iterations of it, and it spans generations and generations. But the legend of the Aswang is that it is actually a blanket or an umbrella term for multiple different types of evil spirits. And there are several different types. Of course, there are vampiric type creatures that suck blood. Um, there are ones that turn into dogs and attack people. Um, there are ones that uh, are witches or witches that became Aswangs, which are supposedly extremely powerful and very, very dangerous. There are ghouls, like your standard ghoul, kind of that eats the corpses
Mm-hmm.
of the deceased. Um, and there's one which I find the most disturbing out of all of those is called the viscera sucker. And the viscera sucker has a diet of internal organs. Um, so what it likes to do is it attacks people and feasts on their internal organs, but most specifically attacking pregnant women.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh.
So
Oh.
yeah, it's pretty messed up. Now the thing about these particular creatures, um, they're similar. Like I said, they're similar to vampires and werewolves and the kind of stuff. But they all have kind of the ability to blend in with normal society. So during the day, they take the form of a human and kind of just wander around and talk to people in villages and pretend to be normal people. But at night is when their powers return and their animalistic nature returns and they start attacking and attacking people. Let's see. They come in like multiple different forms. As like if Nick has this pulled up, you'll see images of art for Aswangs. There's tons of different
I got it pulled up.
images there of different types of forms that they can take. Like some of them uh, lose half. Like some of the legends are when they go hunting, they lose half their body and hide it in a place, and then only the top half goes and searches for victims. They can take forms of dogs. They can shift shape. They can shape shift and all that. Usually fly around. Now of course there are multiple different stories of, man, I met an Aswang and this happened and I heard weird things and it was this, and a lot of it people attribute to, well, it's a similar role of local lore, which is to explain things that are weird or unexplained. But other people seem to think that it was the Spaniards. When the Spaniards showed up, they believed that these stories were propagated by the Spaniards in order to keep people in check. Because if you're in a village and these monsters are stalking you at night, you don't want to leave the village. You don't want to leave your house. So it's kind of hard to, move in the darkness and start a revolution when you're being afraid of being hunted by creatures. So, I mean, that's the basic gist of them. Typically, they take the form of of an attractive female, and their goal is to lure victims and attack them once they get too close. So it's always, you got to be really careful about what you're doing. So sometimes they have specific symptoms that you can recognize them. Like, for example, their eyes. If you see that your reflection in their eyes is upside down, that's a sign that they're unnatural and they're not human. And of course, Aswangs are supposed to be murdered on the spot because they're too dangerous to be left alone. Usually, they pretend they try to hide by being quiet and shy, but when they get hungry, they transform back at night. They transform back into their evil forms. Interesting thing about it is, like the vampire versions of them don't attack using their teeth like you see in Western vampires. They always leave like the pinholes because they have the really long fangs. But these instead use long, sharp tongues, kind of like kind of like a frog tongue, except it's really sharp, and that's how they attack. Um, they like to attack and eat the hearts and livers of, like I said, unborn children. So it's always, don't ever go out at night if you're pregnant at all ever, because you never know. And also another interesting thing about it is you can become one by allowing if you tie a chicken egg to your stomach, then the legend goes that the chick will burrow itself into your stomach and give you the powers of the Aswang, which the Aswang can also transfer its powers after it dies, or while it's dying, before it dies, by transferring the chick from one person to another. So you can never, even if you kill an Aswang, you're never guaranteed that the creature is dead.
Mm.
So that is the legend of the Aswang. Be careful, because during the day they might appear to be normal. You gotta notice really subtle differences to tell them apart.
Ooh.
And even then, it might be too late.
Just like my ex-wife. Okay. All right, let's see. All right, my second one it's a Native American one, all right? I may not look it. If you meet me in real life, I don't look quarter Native, but I am a quarter Onondaga. That's how you know it's real, because I didn't say Cherokee. I'm a quarter Cherokee. My grandma was a Native American princess. But this is an Iroquois legend called the Oniate, which is a dry fingers or dry hand. It's very short, so this is going to be a real quick one.
Mm-hmm.
But see, I have it pulled up as Native American thing. It's like a website. The name is Oniate. The tribal affiliation is the Seneca and Cayuga, which are under Iroquois.
Okay.
So it's either dry hand or dry fingers. So it could be any of those things, and it's a ghost or a monster. Oniate, the dry fingers or dry hand, is a disembodied, mummified arm of Iroquois, especially Seneca and Cayuga folklore. In some stories, dry fingers is purely a boogeyman appearing in deserted areas to terrorize people passing by. But in other stories, dry fingers is a vengeful apparition that only punishes badly behaved people, especially those who speak evil of the dead, sow discord, or pry into other people's business. The arm can fly, and many person touched by its withered dry fingers is killed, afflicted with a disease, or struck blind. The Oniate is not to be confused with Onata, an Iroquois corn spirit and fertility goddess. There's also a heroine named Oniata in one of the folk tales talk about the Seneca chief of corn by Seneca chief corn planter, who is not related to the dry fingers. Oniate literally means dry fingers in Cayuga, and Seneca, Onia means fingers, and Te means dried out. The names of the corn goddess and folktale heroine both come from the word corn. So it's just something that Seneca and Cayuga tell to be a boogeyman. Just this disembodied, mummified hand flying around, touching you, giving you blindness, disease, or killing you.
Wow.
I can read a couple more. Since
Now
that one was really short, I can read a couple more.
Yeah,
There's
go ahead.
a bunch around here. Here we go. Native American ghost stories. Let's pick one out. Ooh. Let's see. Here we go. That looks good. That's long. Never mind. Oh gosh.
Oh wow.
Oh, are you watching too? Oh, and that's too long too. Oh well, let's read another one of these. The Long Black Being. This is what is it? Choctaw.
Ooh. Choctaw is a tribe that was like the Mississippi, Alabama.
They're southern. Its name is Nalusa Falia. Nulucephalia is a frightening creature of Choctaw mythology. Its name literally means long black being, and though it is usually described as a tall, spindly humanoid, it is sometimes led to slither like a snake or melt into the form of a shadow. It lurks in the long shadows around dusk, frightening children from staying out too late and occasionally bewitching incautious hunters. So that's just a short thing to let them chillins know whenever you see it's dark to come and get your ass inside. Sounds like Slender Man to me. You know what I'm saying, fellas?
As for the dark arts, so no, I don't know what you're saying.
Oh my! You don't study the dark arts? You don't study creepypasta?
I don't fool. I mean,
Man.
I'm aware of it, but I don't.
I mean, if you don't read Squidward Suicide every night, I mean, I don't know.
Oh my
I
Gosh,
don't-
dude, I've read that. That's fooey.
It's fooey.
Oh, is it Benjamin? Is
Can I
it?
go with my next?
Okay.
Game?
Listen.
So,
Oh my gosh.
that story was based on a nugget of truth, like the fact that the U.S. was actually in the Galapagos Island. This story is actually also based on some truth.
Yeah.
A family, a man and his wife, and this is. Oh, I'm sorry. France. I know that French
Okay.
can be very scary, but we don't need to be scared of that.
That's rude. Oh.
This is called the Bleeding House, and it's actually located in Saint Quentin city in uh, Aisne. I don't know how to pronounce that. Aisne. It's in France,
Aizne.
and it's an actual place. You can actually go to this location. So in 1986, a family moved to the property. And they started hearing strange noises, like moans and clanging pots coming from the ground level. First, they were just like, "Oh, it's the neighbors, whatever." Weird. One day, the wife witnessed a strange viscous. I don't know how to say that.
Viscous?
Whatever. It's a red substance that was dripping from the walls of the kitchen. First, they believed that it was just like old red paint that was somehow surfacing. Wow. But then they decided to call the police. Investigation led to the fact that it wasn't paint resurfacing, but it was human blood that was coming out of the walls. He creeped out,
Mm-hmm.
and they decided to leave the house.
Smart.
The house for a week.
Mm.
Actually, they were smart. They spread flour on the ground because they're thinking that somebody must have pulled a prank on them. Flour on the ground, hoping to catch footprints. But when they returned to the house, there were no footprints, and the walls were totally covered in blood. Priest and that it had to be haunted. There was a demon, and that the house should be demolished at once. Demolished the house. They bulldozed it, and underground, 50 corpses of German soldiers from World War One. Eventually, um, they took all the dead bodies out, and they built a new house, and you can actually go there today.
Mm. La Mansion Sangulate.
Yep.
The
That's
Bleeding
pretty.
House.
That's a pretty sick story. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
It's pretty deep.
It's crazy. Well,
Bleeding
what
House.
what
Like,
makes you
that creeped me out. I mean, wow.
yeah what
Imagine that. You just all of a sudden your walls just start bleeding.
what makes you think is, where did the blood come from? If it's 1986, the blood should
Yeah.
have all the body should have been decomposed, and how did it
Mm,
find its way into the walls?
yeah.
That's true.
Wow.
When
This
when was when was Fred Durst born? Because wait, no, wait, no, that's a different. I was thinking a different band. Let the bodies hit the floor, and then blood runs down the wall. This drowning pool I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
Drowning
This is the
pool,
second time I've made a joke on like on yours, Benny. The Galapagos, and then all of a sudden I'm making fun of the French.
Hate me. That's okay. I understand.
Hate me today.
So you can
Hate
actually go and see
me.
the house they built over the old house. It's in Saint Quentin.
You guys trying to go? Lorecast
Good.
on the road
I know, right? Lorecast live all the way from a haunted freaking place.
in France. That'd be fun. If you want to see us go to France, check down below patreon.com/lore_cast. I don't have a Patreon for this podcast.
Just wire it. Just wire it to me.
We're part of a network, but no one watches our stuff in the network. We're in a network of like 4,000 people. Ain't nobody care. Everyone's in this network. Shout out to Team Spock Worldwide. All right.
So what's the last story, Andy?
Andy,
All right. So
tell us one more.
this story is another legend,
Skinny
but it's
legend.
actually the legend of the Hoya Baciu Forest, and this is located in a very famous, creepy place, Transylvania, Romania. Now, typically, when you say Transylvania, people think of Dracula.
I mean, I
because,
think of Frankenstein because, I watch Hotel
Yeah.
Transylvania.
Yeah, Transylvania is associated with those kind of creepies.
Yeah.
But often forgotten, because when people go to Transylvania, what do they want to go to see? They want to see the castle of Vlad
Vladimir.
Tepes, Vlad Tepes, who ended up becoming the lore or the legend of Dracula, and da-da-da-da. And most people know that story. But what they don't know is the mysterious happenings in this forest known as Hoya Baciu. It's in Transylvania. I'm not exactly sure how far away from the castle it is, but it's considered by some, and by many actually, to be the world's most haunted forest. So, the legend, one of the name of the legend, I guess, is a good place to start. The name of the forest was named after, and of course this is all legend, so no one is this valid? Is this not? Questions, thrown around. But the name of the forest comes from a shepherd that many, many, many years ago. Of course, all the sources I looked at, there was no date as to when that would be. So there's, is this verifiable? I can't tell. But this shepherd wanders into the forest with 200 sheep, and all of them disappear without a trace. So that kind of caught me by surprise, just the sheer number of animals that the shepherd is herding into this forest that all vanish without a trace. And the name of the forest comes from that story. One of the other weird things that happens in that story is apparently there are stories of people who go in there, disappear for periods of time, come out later, exactly the same as they left, and have no idea that they had ever been gone for an amount of time and don't have any memory of whatever happened there. Like, one of the more famous examples is another legend of this 5-year-old girl who disappeared into the forest and was gone for 5 years, and then all of a sudden reappeared 5 years later, exactly the same age, wearing the exact same clothes. And when they questioned her about it, she had no idea that she had been missing for that long. She thought it had just been a couple minutes. So that leads to the theories that this place is some sort of dimension to an alternate world. And some people would say that other evidence that this claim is real is back in the 60s, there have been pretty much continuous sightings of strange lights, strange shapes in the sky, and other strange things like that. Now, the interesting thing about this, let's see, I'm trying to find exactly. There is a specific there's a specific name. There was a scientist or a university professor that
Is
took some
it
pictures.
this Josh Gates guy? Because that comes up when I
No,
type in. Okay.
no. Josh Gates actually. I think Josh Gates is a YouTuber that
Oh wait, I
visited
see.
that, and
I
I
see.
watched that. Yeah, I watched that video. And it's it's just them walking around in a forest for 15 minutes,
It,
and they hear some animals and stuff. But it's the story is that this guy, it was 68 something like that, was out with his students in the forest. There's this one particular area in the forest right in the middle, this meadow, kind of this circular shaped meadow that just doesn't grow trees, or there's grass there, but other than that there's no vegetation. And while he was there, he uh, took pictures of some strange objects he saw flying in the sky, and turned them in, told everybody about it, and turned them in, and da 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 da. And of course, this was back when Romania was still communist. So when he did that, of course, the communists confiscated and suppressed this story, and didn't confiscated the images and all that stuff, and he basically lost his position in whatever notoriety he had up until that point. So the question that people ask about that story is, if he, what would he have had to gain by faking the images? And I'm sure you can find them, Nick, if you just type, put in the UFOs.
yeah, I've got right now the image I have pulled up is the clearing, like that massive
Yeah,
clearing with like no
yeah,
trees and
yeah.
all these curvy trees. There's people with the red circles everywhere.
Oh yeah, those of course are fake.
Check
Those
this
of course are
snowman out.
fake. Those are
Whoa,
useless clickbait. But
whoa.
there are actual those images that were taken. They've had people analyze them, and actual photo people who know what photography is go in and analyze them. And as far as they can tell, there's no way they could have been doctored or faked.
Yeah,
That they are authentic. Which of course leads to more questions as to what exactly is going on there.
yeah.
Now, another interesting feature about this forest is, I'm sure you can, if you type in, you'll definitely see it, is the strange trees that are growing there. Like, there's the image of the trees that kind of come out from the ground and then immediately take a really
Yeah.
sharp curve, and then curve like in an S back up towards the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody can figure out what is causing that, or why that's happening.
Aliens.
They've had yeah, like, people think that it's some sort of dimensional thing. Um, no, they've analyzed it, and as far as they can tell, the event that would push them in that direction had to have had, like, every time it happens, it's something that suddenly pushed the tree in that direction. It's not a gradual growth pattern. It's something that, boom, the tree got pushed really hard that way, or suddenly got shaped that way, and then returned back to trying to be, going back to its normal growth pattern of going straight. Some of them have like grow in spirals, kind of like wrapping around themselves.
Hmm.
And no one can really explain what that's about. And the clearing is also a strange place too, because they've tested the soil, and they don't really know what's going on, but nothing grows there other than the grass that's there.
Did they find?
Flowers, bushes, trees. Yeah, there's nothing. It's not a man-made clearing. It's just a natural clearing that's
Yeah.
happening for whatever reason, and no one really knows why. So people
Did they find like?
assume
Did they find midichlorians in the dirt there?
maybe, yeah, maybe they found some
Yeah.
sort of
Bringing it back to episode
Soviet
one.
nuclear dump or something. I don't know about that, but
Well,
um,
sorry to interrupt, but the clearings they're unexplained. Is there multiple clearings or just one?
there's just this one. Like, I'm sure there are more than one clearing in the forest, but this is the one that's the famous one, because
It's
it's
Those-
it's the biggest,
massive.
and it's the biggest, and it's no one really knows why it doesn't grow anything
There's
there.
a similar
Um,
phenomenon that's actually happening in Africa, like a myth or a spooky story, but it's a similar natural phenomenon. There's like clearings. There's a
mhm.
bunch of them on the ground.
yeah.
To, right now, what they're called. I saw them on an episode of a show. but I mean, maybe it's Red Forge is happening in
Maybe.
Africa.
It's weird.
Hmm.
But of course, you always have the legends of people going through it and seeing in that especially in that clearing, like satanic symbols and setting up strange, witchcraft and all sorts of different things. Like
Yeah, there's a
even in
picture of
the
like a little skull on a tree up here.
yeah. Oh, and that also reminds me of another phenomenon that people tend to see is when they take pictures. Sometimes they'll get the pictures developed and they'll see faces of people that weren't there when they took the picture, and they didn't
Mm.
notice while they were there.
Mm.
They're
That there are
called fairy
stories.
circles.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're called red circles that say, "Look here,
even in the
story
video
time."
where even in the video where like we mentioned earlier, Josh exploring with Josh is the channel. I watched it before I did this, but they see a bunch of different like small fire pits kind of scattered in a line in a strange pattern around the clearing. Of course, they don't see anything like it's animal blood or anything like that, but still kind of weird. Instead of being one fire, it's just a bunch of little fires. Of course, that could just be anybody camping there, but there's stories of people that go and they camp in that clearing. Like one particular story I'm remembering is they camp in this clearing and they're out walking. They're walking along, and they left a couple people in the clearing and they're just walking, exploring the forest. And all of a sudden, they see this old guy walk up, and he's limping. He's not carrying any gear with him. It's just him, and he's alone, and that's it. And he's limping, and so they're like kind of weirded out by it. But they walk up to him and they start talking to him and ask him, well, "Hey, what's going on?" Whatever. He doesn't say anything to him. He just looks at him and asks him, uh, you know, "Where's the city? Where's the nearest city?" And they tell him, "Oh, yeah, to get back to the city, all you need to do is follow the tire tracks because there are trucks that drive through and stuff like that." So there's literally no way to get lost. You just follow these deep tire tracks and you'll get there. He's like, "All right," and he walks away and they continue going. Now the thing is that path had to go back through the clearing. Those tire tracks led back through the clearing. When they get back to the clearing later that day, they ask their friends there, "Hey, did you see anybody uh, show up, or is there anyone else here?" And the friend said, "No, there's nobody showed up at all. We haven't seen anyone all day."
Mm.
So the question, where did this old guy come from? Where did he go?
Where did he come
Where
from,
does he
Cotton
come
Eye
from,
Joe?
Cotton Eye Joe? Yeah. So
And
another, I mean, it's a lot of disappearances. Like apparently, over 1,000 people have gone missing in this forest without trace, uh, over the years. The UFOs, the strange lights, strange noises, um, strange creatures. Sometimes people will see out there. A lot of just kind of weird stuff. And I don't know if this is another thing. I don't know if this is actually accurate or not. It just adds to the whole mystique of the places. In the 50s, apparently there was this contest that they gave to anybody who wanted to enter. They gave them a compass and a map and nothing else, and they were told you have 48 hours to start from this side of the forest and get all the way through, and we'll give you tons of money if you succeed. Well, apparently nobody made it through. Um, and I don't think that means that everybody just kind of disappeared or whatever, but nobody could make it through, and they were all given journals to journal their thoughts as they went through. And apparently, as they started going through, they started losing it, and you can see in their journals that everybody starts kind of they start feeling watched, that they're not alone. They hear voices, they hear female voices out talking and laughing out off in the background, which is a common report, and nobody could take it all the way through. It started driving them insane.
you find
So,
the
I mean,
journal?
say what?
You said
That's just. I mean, it. I don't think it. I think that's as much as I heard about that story. So that could just be another one of those urban legends that's neither. There's nothing to indicate that it exists,
Mm.
but also nothing to indicate that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that would kind of lead me to believe that this isn't true is because I haven't, in my research, haven't heard anything about that particular story except from one particular source. And if it was something official like that, where like the town was giving a contest or something, you'd think there'd be some sort of documentation about
Mhm.
that.
So I was
So
looking at the. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just looking at the. They're called African, and so they're not like the ones in the forest, because the one in the forest is like this huge clearing,
Hmm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
fairy circles are anywhere from 5 meters to 17 meters in diameter, and it's a bunch
Mm.
of them.
Could you translate it to freedom units, please? I don't understand meters.
I mean, either I'm looking at the, and it's a bunch of them. It's like spots on the ground,
Mm.
and
Like eczema for the earth.
yeah, basically. And the local people, like the myth behind that is that footprints of the gods or whatever.
Oh.
Uh, and for the longest
Mm.
time, they
Hmm.
what cost them, but I think as of 2017, they was, but
Mm. All right.
I think
That's all of our stories, right?
I
Yep,
think so.
that's it.
All right. So we're at 41 minutes. I got one more thing, just one more,
Okay.
just to kind of round us all out. It is. It's a Japanese legend. Okay, it's not a legend. It's actually folklore. It's a spirit. This is called the Gashadokuro. It is a gigantic skeleton. If you, I just thought I'd cover it since whenever sometimes I switch to my whenever I have to like switch something, it shows this image of my background, which is actually the Gashadokuro. It is a spirit that take the form of giant skeletons that are 15 times taller than average people. Uh, it is created from the amassed bones of people who died of starvation or in battle without being buried. These yokai,
Wow.
which are a spirit, roam after midnight, grabbing lone travelers and biting off their heads to drink their spraying blood.
Wow.
There is a way to know of their approach, as the victim would hear the sound of loud ringing in their ear. The Dokuro are said to possess the powers of invisibility and indestructibility through Shinto charms, though Shinto charms are said to ward them off. So it's literally that's why I like it. It was a cool image that I saw of like these gigantic skeletons that are super
Wow.
big. Like yeah, they're really cool.
I got one for you if you want
Hmm.
to hear it.
Was that?
This one on it's another. This is not a story, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
Um, religion in Africa, I believe it's voodoo,
Yeah.
a remote part of Africa. It's in Benin or something like that. And
Hmm.
What? You cut out there for a second.
the name of the spirit is Koku or Koko.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let me make sure. Yes, it's Kokou. Spirit in like or part of Western Africa where they practice voodoo.
Mm.
And so what's interesting is that most spirits in voodoo, they're very benevolent. So, you sacrifice a chicken and, the spirit is happy with you, upon you good fortune.
Mm.
This guy named Coco, hope I'm not mispronouncing it. He's the feared deity. Really, really tough spirit. Um, and the only way that he can be appeased if he goes into a person. Happens, and you can actually look at videos of this. Whenever he goes into a person, the person like he jerks around and just what you would typically consider somebody being possessed doing, like runs around, jerks around, screams.
Yeah.
And I think I even at one point the person like cuts himself.
Oh.
Hmm.
The reporter that was reporting on this asked the lady, "This spirit go into you and jerk you around, and why would you go through this? Like why would you let him do this to you?" And she said, Koku is the strongest spirit, right?
Yeah.
Our protector.
Oh.
He's also the because he's the strongest spirit. He's the one that can protect us against other spirits. So I just thought that was like in many ways like somebody has to take one for the team to appease the gods. It's, I think what's interesting about folklore and mythology in general is mythology and tales. They come from an oral tradition, and this was before like how many people that you know have glasses?
Mm.
Yeah.
Glasses. Can you imagine 1,000 years ago people that needed glasses that see
Oof.
blurry?
Yeah.
Freaking demons cause your eyesight to be sucky.
Yeah,
Gotta kill them.
and it's
Yep.
so there's the famous the feather snake. I believe is his name. I hope I'm not getting. And Montezuma is the feather snake, right? And so this time, archaeologists and historians figure out where Montezuma came from. See the feathered snake. Like where in the world did the Aztecs get a feathered snake?
Yeah, where in the
Yeah.
world is Carmen San Diego?
Basically. And so what they found was that if you ever see there's this bird called a quetzal,
Mm.
right? It's the national bird of Guatemala. It's a quetzal, and it's green and it has a long tail. The quetzal flying in the air,
Mm-hmm. A snake.
their snake.
A feathered snake.
So it was in a lot of ways, and the Greeks were famous for doing this. It's their way of things.
Yeah.
You know how the Greeks have a myth for everything, like
Mm-hmm.
anything from the echo of your voice or the changing of the seasons or how a spider came to be.
Mm.
The gods are at play here. Seasons. It's always interesting to
Cool.
me how the world found very creative ways around them, and and it makes me wonder. Day.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. We'll keep it shorter this time. We're not going to go the full hour, I think. We're only 12 minutes behind anyway. But I think this is more concise, and we had more interesting topics because usually we talk about, we've been bouncing around a lot of topics. First we talked about movie, then we talked about a couple shows, couple comics, talked about an ARG, but this is like actual lore now, and that's what's really interesting. I think that we finally brought it around to actual lore. But for the rest of the October season, I think it's 4 Sundays in October. I didn't check the schedule, the calendar this year, but if we have four in October, it'd be all about spooky, scary stuff. I still have to try and get some solo stuff going. If I could get other people in the cast to do some readings, that would be fantabulous. And send them to me, that'd be great. So be on the lookout for some really cool stuff coming your way. I think only the show is going to be streamed to Twitch because that would be ridiculous. I don't know, maybe we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I'm Nick from the Joe Nick Show hosting, and again, I have Benny and Andy with me as always. They're the pillars of this community.
Pillars.
You guys want to say anything before we head on out?
Or do not. There is no try.
Oh, okay. Good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, same for me. Same for me.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Also, I do want to say thank you to Aaron Mankey's Lore. I gathered a lot of inspiration from that recently. Been trying to listen to a lot of really nice podcasts. Also, check out What's the Frequency and Station Blue. They are both ridiculously amazing podcasts. I've talked to the guy who does Station Blue. I support him on Patreon. He's a really nice guy. And if you're into D&D podcasts, check out Dungeons and Daddies. Sometimes a BDSM podcast. All right, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next episode of Lorecast.